Welcome to An Awful World, but not awful like you think.
This is the show where we discuss whether we would have discovered important advances in a world exclusively full of Haylies and Libby's. I'm Haylie.
And I'm Libby. And today we're talking about marriage. Marriage.
Go into the chapel and Libby's gonna get married.
Anyway, thank you for joining us for this episode on marriage. No, I'm kidding.
The end.
We're doing this episode now because I am an engaged lady now.
I'm so excited.
So shout out to my fiance. My fiance or my fiance.
He liked it, so he put a ring on it.
That's right.
That's right.
Now I can't do that ever again, and I don't care.
You don't have to be doing the single ladies dance, and you don't have to catch the bouquet.
I know. Bitch, it's my bouquet that y'all better be vying for. Just kidding. There'll be like no one at my wedding to catch the bouquet because they're all just married. Just be like, well, all right, I guess this is what happens when you're like the last one in a group of people, but it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Make them do it anyway.
Make them do it anyway.
Be like, I had to do it at your wedding. Get out there.
So, marriage. What a fascinating topic.
It really is.
There's so much that I didn't. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that I was just kind of like, oh, that makes sense, but I still don't like that.
Yeah.
So
let's get into it. Tell me why.
Well, all right. So basically, we know that marriage is at least like very, very old.
It's at least very old.
It's at least very old. At the very least, it's ancient. It's been around since, we think, 2350 BC.
Yes.
See, I was going to say like 2,000 years ago. That was like 4,000 years ago, which is why I panicked. And I was like, we think it's at least very old. Because I forgot how time works.
Well, to be fair, to go backwards and then forwards.
Yes.
Whoever came up with that system is
I know. Because
ridiculous.
Then it's counting down. You're like, the year is 2350. And then you're like, but now it's 2349.
Yeah.
Like at the turn of the, So
Doesn't
anyway,
work.
it's stupid. But that's like the earliest evidence that we have of like ceremonies, specifically including one woman and one man, which, piece one that I really don't like about it. But it was more of a practical / strategical thing, which makes sense because it was a way to like protect lineage and
property.
Yes. So that's kind of icky. That's why they were often arranged and had nothing to do with love.
I know.
And the whole like love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage situation. Not that old.
No.
Like honestly kind of sad.
I know. It's all like, oh, well, I'll trade you my daughter for a handful of beans and, 2 chickens.
Right. Which my dad has been telling Brian. Well, Brian's been telling my dad I'm still like waiting for my 2 goats. And I'm like, well, the family's working on it. So
honestly, in this economy with the bird flu, he'd be better off getting some chickens.
I agree.
I'm just saying.
I'll run it past him.
Yeah.
See if he approves. So yeah. And then obviously like also producing heirs.
Yeah.
And so you have people to pass down to, and also free labor with your children, which is another icky aspect of all of
that's
this.
why they used, partially like birth control wasn't a thing. And like the church is always saying like, don't use that.
Like crazy.
But also it's just kind of like, that's why they all had like 12 kids.
Yes.
But because they had to work the farms and help with the house and
then
be
like
the labor.
Problematic for like royal families because they're so inbred that you get things like the Habsburg jaw, which we've already talked about. But everybody do the Habsburg jaw with us, with your face. So the shift towards like romantic stuff wasn't until like the Victorian era. So like Bridgerton.
Yeah.
That's when things became slightly more like courtship and see if it's going to work and type situation. But even then, like maybe not necessarily for love.
No, because even then it was still very much like you need to find the like most wealthy man and things like that. And even then it was like if the man chose you, you kind of had to say yes whether you liked him or not.
Yeah, and the whole thing too with like, you know, the like high society situation and courting and all of that is that you're only getting to choose from like this very small pool of people. So even if you like loved a poor person, it's like, well, sorry, that's not an option because you have to pick somebody that's going to like provide for you for the rest of your days.
Yeah.
Which is important to be able to have like someone to provide for you. But I wouldn't say it's the most important.
No, especially if it's like, oh, well, am I going to have a roof over my head and like food on the table, but he's going to beat the shit out of me.
Right.
Versus like maybe we both have to work a little and
then he just doesn't beat the shit out of me.
Exactly. And maybe like we have a nice time together.
Right.
I think I would choose
We enjoy each other's company. And by the way, again, he doesn't beat the shit out of me. Then yeah, 100%.
It's wild how that just, I feel like gets glossed over all the time.
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know?
No, it's like, to be clear, the Victorian era and then like shortly after that is the rise of like a modern semblance of feminism, which is what changes things. But before that, I mean, there was no like concern about like age of these people. Like basically if you were like 13, like you've never watched Game of Thrones, but like
I watched like the first 2 episodes and I was like, oop.
And you saw enough. Yeah. But basically it's just like, well, if you're old enough to have a period, then you're old enough to like be married off. And that is truly despicable.
It is.
And so you can imagine a lot of women were subjected to like marital rape and all kinds of horrible things.
Well, marital rape wasn't even considered a thing until like
because you can't rape somebody you're
ago.
Married to.
Exactly.
Which is
like,
just
that's
insane.
Not true.
Yes.
Also, there are still men and lawmakers in this country who are like, if you're old enough to have a period, you're old enough to be a parent and a wife. And I'm like,
well aware
nasty.
of that. Yeah, it's disgusting.
It's wild how these things
regressive.
that like when you say them out loud, you're like, wow, that's terrible. And yet you look around and it's still happening to this day. We really haven't come as far as we'd like to think we have.
Yes, but we still have come a long way.
We definitely have.
Like the whole like, you know, I think it still raises some eyebrows. People like a 13-year-old getting married. Like nobody's gonna, no, we're not gonna be doing that. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely still some like piece of it that, and I think that's honestly just like wealth. So anyway, yeah, I think that, yes, you're right. We haven't come as far as we'd like to think we have, but we've still come quite a long way.
We definitely have. It's just, it feels a lot like 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of a situation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And marriage is so beautiful when you love the person you're with, and it can be such a lovely thing. And it's sad that it's 2025 and there are still people that are
married to people they hate.
Yes. And like in the same boat, trying to just like be sold off by their parents pretty much.
Right.
And trying to marry for money rather than love and all of that stuff. And it still happens today. And, you know, a lot of the traditions of like modern weddings, at least here, are rooted in sexism.
Yeah.
And
100%.
things like that. And it's just like really sad because marriage can be so lovely.
Yes, it can be. And I think it's really interesting and also disheartening to think about like, okay, the Victorian era and then like early 20th century, we're talking tops 150, let's say, to be generous, years ago. That's not that much time. But I think about how like everything in our culture, like every TV show, movie, songs, all of that kind of stuff, so much of it is about love and being in love.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that that is such a novel idea of just like think about it. I mean, really, obviously, like love, quote unquote, love existed like 300 years ago or in 2350 BC, but it's like not nearly as big of a part of our lives back then than it is now. And I'm so glad that we live in a time that it's a big part of our lives.
Yes,
because it's really important. And so, yeah, so by like the early 20th century, a lot of stuff happens. Feminism, again, is on the rise, but also like gender roles are really being challenged. And the reason for that is a reason for many things. War.
Always war.
Always war.
Always
the
war.
men are off in Europe fighting. And so the women have to get jobs to be able to support themselves and their families, hence gender roles challenged. And
all of a sudden people are like, what?
I don't need
do stuff?
Yes. I don't need a man, actually. I can exist by myself. Something that women have always known, but, you know.
men are always shocked by.
I know. It's like, what do you
mean?
Anyway.
But whatever.
Right, sure. So that's when like dowries no more, you know, but that really starts to go away. Not getting married so early in your life. Like, I think even about like, I don't know, 35, 40 years ago, people got married so young. Like my parents were very young. I think they were like 20 when they got married.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like a decade older than that almost. And I'm just now getting engaged. Like it's just very different. And I think that is also a result of feminism because like I've been focused on career and schooling up until, you know, a certain point. And then it's like, okay, well, I've kind of like gotten somewhere with that. And now I can explore other areas of my life that I also want to flourish. But interesting.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And what I think is funny is even now here in the Midwest, people still get engaged pretty early on.
Oh, absolutely. It's very skewed.
Yes.
Here.
Yes. And I know there are like videos on TikTok and stuff of people who, you know, grew up in the Midwest, got married here, and then they move out to somewhere like California. And then they're talking to other friends and they're like, oh, well, how long have you been married? And they're like, oh, well, we got married when we were like 22. And they're like, oh my God, why? Like a child bride kind of a thing. And it's like, no, but kind of almost like that's so young. And I think about, you know, Ty and I, we got engaged when I was 23, I think. I was getting ready to go to law school, and which we knew we were going to have a long engagement because I had law school and he had grad school and all of that stuff.
We wanted to get that stuff done.
But we got engaged at 23, but we didn't get married until I was 27.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, there was like a global pandemic in there and stuff too, but
just this tiny little thing,
you know, casual. But I mean, a lot of people get married early 20s still today.
Oh, absolutely. Especially around here.
Yeah, at least here in the Midwest.
Especially around here. Yeah. And, you know, obviously there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
A lot of people that I know and that I grew up with, you know, in my little area of Indiana, you know, if they're high school sweethearts, they went to school together, they went to college together, and then got married like right after college or whatever. Nothing wrong with that at all. But I do feel grateful for the fact that like I got to really experience most of my 20s in like a different type of setting.
Yeah.
Like I needed that. And I think like other people, like they went to college, they got that experience and they didn't, you know, they were ready to be married. I was not. I needed to like wild out a little bit and live with a bunch of girls and, you know, I don't know, do crazy shit. Not that crazy, but, you know, just like I've said this before on the podcast. I know, like, just have the opportunity to like date different people, like figure out what I like, what I don't like. Also just like have fun. Like learning more about that kind of like dating was definitely not something I did in high school or college really. And I wish I would have. So I'm very glad for that time of my life that I was able to like explore that and then just be like, okay, like, and now I know what I want. This was fun. I learned a lot. And now I'm going to move on to like finding someone, you know, that I see being with long term. And now I can't believe it. And he was right under my nose the whole time. So anyway, so I wanted to know, based on just marriage in general, a fascinating topic, of course, but I also wanted to know more about monogamy because wow, what an interesting topic that is not necessarily like the most natural of things to humans.
No, I mean, well, men are always saying.
I know.
Humans aren't supposed to be monogamous.
I know. It's because it's the men that benefit from it.
Yeah.
It's never a woman with like 9 husbands. It's always a man with 9 wives.
Yeah.
Always. But obviously, like, religion played a very big part of that. Like, obviously very influential on one man, one woman, sort of like, you know, your family unit, and then all your children. Again, more of that focus on like labor, especially once people became settled. When they were like more nomadic, it kind of makes sense, even though I don't like it. It makes sense that they were polygamous because it was like, we got to produce as much as we can. Yeah. Because this is like, we're nomadic and we don't know, you know, what's going to happen. Like, we have to build our own community. Right. Via me and these 9 women or whatever. Right. So that influenced that a lot. And yeah, I thought that was interesting because I was like, where does the idea of monogamy come from? Like, did you do any research on monogamy?
I did not.
No. I was just curious if you thought about that at all, but I was like, where does this come from?
What's funny is I wrote down polygamy ?
Yes.
Because I'm just kind of like, would we be polygamous in a world full of Haylies and Libby's?
My gut response is no.
I agree.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. I just think about, you know, like the stupid cliche of like, when you know, you know. Mm-hmm. But it's true.
It is.
It's 100% true. Mm-hmm. Like, I've dated and been around enough people that I've always just been kind of like, yeah, I like them. But like, do I feel like no? And like, I knew on my first date with Brian, I was like, I'm going to marry him. Yeah. I know I am.
And it's just like, click.
Yes. You know? And it does. And it's just like, and we've like had this conversation so many times about like being with the person that you're meant to be with feels like not having to work at all. Yes. Like, it just works, right? Yeah. Like, I don't get tired of seeing him. I don't get tired of sitting on the couch and listening to him play video games and like none of that. There's no part of me where, and that's like just not like a natural human response, I don't think. Right. It's like, even when I lived with my best friends, I love those people. I would do anything for them, but there are little things that they would do, you know, that would get on your nerves because you're just people. And I do things that are going to get on their nerves and vice versa. But like, yeah, like Brian does things that get on my nerves, but it doesn't like eat me alive or anything. Exactly. I'm not just like, oh, I can't do this. This is so much. And they're always like, never live with your best friends, you know? Yes. So I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's like, you know, if you have a long weekend and you're doing a bunch of stuff with a bunch of different people and your social battery is low, you know, at least this happens with me. I come home and I'm just like, I just want to sit here by myself for a while. Yeah. And sometimes Ty will be like, do you want me to go? And I'm like, no. Being alone does not mean away from you. Right. It means
from other people.
From other people. I'm like, you and I are one. We are married. Me being with you is like me being alone. Right. In the best way. You know, like you are part of the house, part of me, part of whatever. That doesn't bother me. But I'm like, but if I see one other person, I'm going to scream.
But yes, that's so true of like, and it's like, not even like you have to like mask with your friends or like people, other people you love, but it's just like, you do not have to try at all with the person that you are meant to be with. Like, that is 100% true. Like, I've been living with Brian for almost a year now, and at no point was I like, I can't do this. This is too much. Like, never. Yeah. Never. And it like every day I'm so excited to like wake up and he's there. Yeah. Like, it's such a weird experience. So no, I don't think that we would be polyamorous in an awful world. No. But
I think my feelings would get hurt really, really quickly.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we're just like not that kind of people either. No. You know what I mean? No. Like, I no hate on people who, you know, are in polyamorous relationships or.
No, they're stronger people than I.
Yeah.
That's really what I think it is. Yeah. You know, I mean, you have to be so open and you can't really be jealous. And I know that there's a lot that goes into that. You have to be great at communication, which like I like to think that Ty and I are very straightforward and open with our communication. But you also have to just like more people than I do. But they're just a stronger group of people than I am.
Right. I agree.
Mentally and emotionally. Yeah. And I just don't want to deal with all that. I want to deal with one person max.
And I'll tell you,
that's it.
A lot of times it doesn't work for people. Like, you think of that like Sister Wives show, right?
Yeah.
He's divorced now from like 2 of the 4 women he was married to. Like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
For a lot of people. For some people
it works and great for them.
Yes, that's awesome for them. I have no qualms against it. I'm curious if you think, just because this led me to think of it, in an awful world, if it would look the same in terms of like, it's like a government sanctioned union type of thing.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
No. This is what is so weird with me personally. I love marriage. As you know,
I'm just now hearing this for the first time.
I've been squealing for a week about the fact that you've been married. Every time I walk by your desk, I'm like, hello, bride. I'm so excited. I love the idea of marriage. Yes. But I love like every little thing about it. I love love. As you know, it's like my motto. But sometimes I'm just kind of like, marriage means nothing.
I get that.
Because
it's a piece of paper from the government.
Yes. Yeah. Like when Ty and I got married, we had already bought a house.
Right.
We had been living together for like 7 years.
Yeah.
You know, all of these things. So it was kind of like when people were like, do you feel different? Is everything different? I was like, no. Everything's exactly the same.
Yeah.
This means literally nothing when you boil it down. You know, I mean, we get like a tax break because we file married,
right? You
know, and the government is like, yay, you can own things together, but also like we already kind of did. So what's really the difference, you know?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what I like is the ceremony of it all.
Oh yeah, the pomp and circumstance of it.
Yes, well, and not really even that. It's more just like I love being able to just be like Buddy in Elf, where he's like, I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it.
I sent you that gift the other day because that's me all week.
Yes, it's just like
throwing my hat.
I just like the fact that you can be like, I'm super in love and I want to share it with the world.
Yes, I want to share it with all these other people that I love.
Yes, and I like that. I like people putting on pretty clothes and standing up in front of each other and telling the world why they love each other. It makes me cry.
The most basic idea of it is not that great, not romantic, whatever. But the ceremony and the like showing of your love is really, really cool.
I really love it.
I know. It's wonderful.
I want to cry. I love Libby.
I know you do.
It makes me so happy.
But I totally get where you're like, I feel like this means nothing sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't feel like your marriage means nothing. It's just like the idea of it.
Yes.
And honestly, I think, again, so much of that is influenced by like the way our society has changed even over the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like 50 years ago, like a unmarried couple living together, that was so like taboo.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's also just changed so much where it's like, you don't have to like fit inside of these like boundaries that are established by our society of like what you want your relationship to be. And I've never felt like the government or anybody else really needs to have any involvement in that.
No.
Which is specifically why like I hate that it took until, you know, I was I think Obergefell came out in 2013. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my freshman year of college.
Mm-hmm.
I was 19 years old by the time Obergefell came out. That's insane.
I know.
The 21st century.
It makes me so mad to this day that people are like, marriage is between a man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, literally any two people who are consenting adults, they can express their love for one another.
Yeah.
Why does it matter? It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your marriage. It doesn't affect anything about day-to-day life. I don't understand it. And at the end of the day, as somebody who is married to a man, which I tell him all the time, in today's age, it just feels embarrassing.
He's nodding.
Yeah. He's like, I know,
An
it's
apology
embarrassing.
for men everywhere.
And at the end of the day, our marriage is a piece of paper. So it doesn't really mean that much. What means something to me is the fact that like we had the ceremony and like expressed our love, and like there were only 2 people there because of unforeseen circumstances, because of a pandemic. But like we got to share in that moment with other people and just like be in love.
And the moment of your like souls uniting forever, basically.
And it's just a moment of love. And like, that's the thing. Sometimes I'm like, should we get divorced so we can get married again? And he's like, we could just renew our vows. And I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh, I forgot that was a
works.
thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But I'm like, should we do that every year? Because I just like love being
it's
in
so
love.
Fun.
It's so fun. I just love it.
Well, for those of you who are listening, if you are not familiar, I just realized that we're attorneys and we just throw this shit around. Like, you know, everybody knows it. Obergefell is the decision that legalized gay marriage in the United States. So, you know, pretty well into the 21st century and just now having that. But you know what I'm always saying about the people that shout the loudest about things? They got something to hide. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I feel the same way. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care because, as you said, it has no bearing on my life. No. So I feel like those, you know, people who want to marry someone of their same gender, go for it. What harm does it have on me? And another thing I'm always saying is the fact that women are still attracted to men after everything they've done is proof that sexuality is not a choice.
It's true.
Because honestly, if I could choose to love a woman like that romantically, maybe I would.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be a hell of a lot easier, you know, than being like, oh, men, like, they're so great.
I know.
All the time. And like, your man is great.
Yeah.
My man is great. But like,
but a lot of them are not.
I know.
Woof.
I have to be careful who you say that to. Whoops. I hurt somebody's feelings with that the other day, and I was like, well, sorry, it's true, but all right.
But, you know, whatever.
Yes. But anyway.
Maybe we'll open a history book and you wouldn't be so offended. I'm
right.
Just saying.
Yeah. Just like historically speaking.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying like you personally are the problem.
No.
But
I'm
your
not
gender as a
that.
whole throughout history has been the problem and
you
continues to be the problem.
Perpetrated the most evils in the world. But anyway.
Anyway, the men who were in an awful world, they would not be the problem.
No, because they don't care.
No.
You love who you love, you marry who you want to marry. I have never understood the government's interest in doing anything with that. That's so beyond me. And like, you know, while we're at it, because we're lawyers and it's fun, you know, Loving versus Virginia. That's the decision that allowed interracial couples to marry. That is another thing that I'm like, why on earth did the government ever have to get involved in that aspect of it? You have two, like you said, you have 2 consenting adults.
Yes.
You agree to be married? Great. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what your creed, your religion. I don't care.
No.
Why do we care?
It's about 2 people who, again, consenting adults.
Right.
But they just click. And it does not matter where they're from. It does not matter what they look like. It does not matter what's in their pants. Right. It literally does not matter. I just don't understand why people are so pressed about it. But the reason they're so pressed about it is because marriage originated about property, producing heirs, things like that. They don't want
and same-sex couples cannot biologically produce.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm like,
that doesn't matter anymore, though.
No.
You know what I mean?
And
like,
it really shouldn't have mattered then either. Especially because before birth control, like, people were just popping them out left and right. So, like, maybe they could have calmed down and just let some gay people be gay. Good God. Like,
just let it happen.
Lord, maybe some people needed a break.
It also just runs so, like, contradictory to some things that I believe in, like, you know, obviously we've talked about on the podcast that like I wouldn't describe myself as a religious person anymore, but I would describe myself as spiritual. Like I certainly believe in God and all of that. And, you know, in the Bible, there's a famous verse, like it's 1 Corinthians 13 or something. They read it at so many weddings. You know, it's like love is patient, love is kind, one, right? And part of it is that like love conquers all, love endures all. Like, and so where in there does it say love between a man and a woman conquers all and endures all? And
it does not.
It doesn't. So it's just sort of like contradictory to some of the things that people who purport to be Christians or religious. It's just like a lot of cherry picking, and I hate that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it doesn't specify. And also like, I have so much I could say about gay marriage, and I just, it doesn't need to be said, because if you're listening to this, you should already know how I feel about gay marriage.
Yes.
And a lot of things. Like, I just don't want the government involved in that kind of stuff.
No.
The only place that I foresee understanding the government being involved is in the case of like polygamy. And the reason is because like there are so many benefits in the United States to being married that it's like, how would you ever like verify that this person isn't just marrying tons of people to get like a ginormous tax break or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like just something to think about there.
I also kind of think that like in an awful world, are we having tax breaks to be married?
No, probably not.
So you probably don't need that.
Right.
But I do think I think we would have like maybe a logbook to just be like, yay, you did it. You're married.
Right.
And then that way, like if somebody dies, you can
marry again.
Well, so that you can have like their stuff, like so their house, you know, like the house that you built together,
for sure,
like the home that you created.
Which was a big issue for people who are homosexual for a long time.
So I think that we would have something like that, and maybe like a divorce situation, so that we can do that. But I did write down like divorce and annulment, because would we have, you know, the laws that were for divorce? Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to a recovering family law attorney. You know, I'd like to believe that in an awful world, people would never, you know, get married to people that they ended up at odds with, I guess. But I also think that's just unrealistic.
Yeah, I think people eventually just grow, and sometimes they grow apart.
Out of each other. Yeah.
And sometimes they're just like frustrated.
It's not working.
And then they're like, I can't do this anymore.
Right. And I don't think it would need to be like ugly like it gets today.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also like it just, for so long, we've made it so difficult on people to obtain divorces, specifically women. And then, you know, there's like this narrative that like, if you're a divorced person, you're like tainted goods and like all this stuff.
Which is not true.
No, it's just so stupid to me. And like you said, like people sometimes just like grow apart. They outgrow each other. They decide they want different things, whatever. And I just, there's so much I see about, you know, even some proposed legislation in our state trying to make those things harder for people. Fortunately, that did not go through.
I know, thank God.
But yeah, it just
tells you what's on people's minds.
Yeah, it feels really regressive. And just
again, people so pressed about things that they just don't need to be.
Yeah, it's just like you know, a cornerstone of the Constitution is like your right to privacy.
Yes.
So, and if you want to argue about that with me or with Haylie, you should go to law school and then come back to me on that after you study that for a few years.
And then when you're still going to argue the opposite position, we're still just going to tell you you're stupid and you're pressed about things you shouldn't be.
Yeah, you're really concerned about other people and what they're doing. And it's raising some flags as what might be happening in your life.
And they're all red.
They are all red. No green flags whatsoever. No. But yeah.
But, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Go to law school and then come back.
I didn't mean to turn this into such a rant about gay marriage. I feel so strongly.
We have big feelings.
Yes, of course. And obviously in this climate that we're in right now, that's at the forefront of my brain.
Yes.
You know, I have people who are in same-sex marriages in my life that I love, that I want to protect their love.
Yes.
And I don't feel like my right to love my fiance is being threatened at all. But like, there's no such thing as someone else's war. Like I will show up on behalf of my friends because that's just not, it's not going to fly with me.
No.
Okay. Because love is love, bitches.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. That's what the flag outside my house says.
That's right. Woo! Which is why we would absolutely have marriage in an awful world.
Now, let's get into the like traditions of weddings.
Please, because I didn't look into this at all. And like, as we were talking, I was like, oh my God, why didn't I look up any of that?
Oh my God.
This is why this is why this works.
Yeah. Because we look up different things. So, okay. Some of this I didn't look up for this because I've already looked it up in the past. I've written papers about it and things about how weddings are sexist and all of this stuff. And, and it's just like wild to me. The things. So, I mean, when we talked about jewelry, we talked about rings, and we talked about diamonds, and how really it was a whole marketing campaign that just like took off. Yeah. Really worked. But so things that I think are so wild, veils, bridesmaids, garters, all of this stuff.
Oh my God, there's so much to this.
So wild. Now, veils. Do you know why we have veils?
Well, I believe so, yes, because it was like a modesty thing, right?
No. It was because
your father was supposed to be the one that.
So a lot of times marriages were arranged.
Okay.
And so they didn't meet until they got down the aisle. Oh my God. So veils were to hide the fact that brides were ugly.
Sorry, that made me laugh so much harder.
Horrible.
Just like, well, we found somebody for her, but we will have to put a very thick veil in front of her face. Like, what the fuck?
So then you're at the end of the aisle and the father like reveals the bride and is kind of like exactly.
Oh
they're like, surprise, can't get out of it now.
Surprise. I do. Yes. We're married.
So there's that. And then bridesmaids, do you know why they're all dressed the same?
No.
So bridesmaids now, they all wear like fun colors that the bride chooses and things like that. They used to all wear the exact same dress as the bride.
What?
It was to confuse demons.
This is like a decoy situation.
Yes, it was to confuse demons so that way they wouldn't get the bride on the wedding day.
I wonder sometimes, just like, do people realize how stupid some of this shit sounds? Like, what do you mean to confuse the demons? The demons have come out of the sky on your wedding day, and they're here to
snatch the bride
down the bride. My God.
What are we going to do? Steal the bride.
This isn't like a Persephone situation. No one's going to snatch you and take you down to Hades.
Well, they were concerned.
Apparently.
They were concerned. So that's why bridesmaids all wear the same thing now.
Wow. I had no idea.
And then the garter. Oh God, the garter. My least favorite tradition.
It's really cringy.
It's really, really cringy.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, my family has this weird tradition that I did participate in of wearing the same garter.
Oh. But then, you did, obviously, wait, were you planning on doing the garter thing?
No.
Okay.
No. The only thing, so my cousins, I'm an only child. So my cousins are all girls. We're all like, boom, 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 right around the same age.
Yeah.
And so we've all kind of got married, boom, 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 you know. And so we would all wear the same garter, and then we would sew on a little charm onto the garter that represents our husband.
Cute.
So like one of my cousins, they played rugby. So the bride had a little rugby charm on there. And then another one, he played hockey. So there's a little hockey sticks charm on the garter. And then my husband plays guitar, so I sewed a little guitar charm on there. And so then you wear that garter.
It's a fun tradition, though.
Yes, but it's also kind of like gross because like sweat.
Yeah,
and
multiple people.
You know, yeah.
I get it.
So, but we were never planning the garter toss because I think it's
weird. Yeah.
Even people who like do it nicely and are just kind of like, my head's up here, I'm looking you in the eye, but I'm also grabbing this off your leg.
In front of a group of people that includes like your parents, your grandparents.
Yes, and then like some people do it with their teeth.
I
and it's
know,
just like,
it's just not for me.
I don't like it.
Yeah, let's not do any sort of like insinuation about sexual behavior at weddings.
Well, but it used to be way worse.
I imagine it was. Yeah.
It used to be that at the wedding, everyone watched you consummate the marriage. And then they would rip off a piece of like the dress or something and like throw it into the crowd to prove.
That's disgusting. I wonder who came up with that. Oh, men.
Yeah, it's nasty.
That is nasty.
Yes. So then it turned into like throwing the garter to be like, we're going to consummate. And I'm just like, ew, that's gross. Yucky.
Yes.
I don't like any of it, you know? And then I just don't like that, like, oh, well, we have the white dress because she's a virgin. Like, and I'm just like, gross.
Need to tell you that ship has sailed, you know? Like,
was like, well, my dress is pink. So, you know, what did that say about me?
I mean, I'm still going to get a white dress, but, you know.
But the white dress was made. I mean, it's hard to not get a white dress, honestly.
Well, actually, that's not true. And the reason I know this is because so many of my friends have gotten married. I've been in 7 weddings, and I'm 29. So just ruminate on that.
I'm frightened.
I have no money and no prospects, and I'm frightened, except she was 27.
Exactly.
But anyway. So apparently only like 2% of dresses on the market are like actual true white. Most of them are ivory.
Yes.
Which I was like, how interesting.
Well, stark white is
a go.
And it's hard to like look nice on a lot of people's skin.
That's true.
You know,
that is very true.
It's just aggressive.
Just like help me out a little because look, I don't want to be the same color as the dress.
Exactly.
But I am.
Which is why I chose pink.
Yeah. And obviously. For so many other reasons.
But
pink.
like when I went to pick out a dress, I went to one place in particular because at Bridal Expos, they told me they had a bunch of pink dresses. And then I got there and they were like, no, we don't. Which made me really mad.
Yeah.
But the owner was like, why do you want a pink dress? And then when I put one on and she saw it, she was like, oh, it looks really nice on your skin. And I'm like, I have very pink undertones and very, very blonde hair.
Yeah.
White was not the color for me.
I will say too, because you got married, 4 years ago?
Yes.
So I feel like, obviously, like I just got engaged. So I've been looking at a lot of things. A lot of stuff's been coming up on my TikTok and my Facebook and all of that because everyone's listening to you all the time.
All the time.
So I will say it feels like it's a new trend that's really up and coming in the last couple of years is like a lot of color on dresses.
Which I love.
I know. Like with the flowers on
I
them.
love the colored flowers on like a cream dress.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Super pretty. It's not what I want.
Right.
But I think it's really cool.
Yes.
And it's cool to see that like being incorporated into dresses, like kind of breaking the, it has to be white tradition is really fun.
But that tradition started, I think, with like Queen Victoria.
Really?
Yes. She wore a white dress.
What a shame, because she changed so many things in her era.
But she wore a white dress. And before that, white dresses were not the norm.
Interesting.
And so she wore a white dress and everyone was like, oh my God, I love it.
What was the norm?
I think just like whatever color you wanted.
Yeah.
And then, but she wore white and then everybody just loved it.
That's so interesting.
Hopped on board. And then I think after that, then people were like purity. And, I don't think
this is what it represents. It didn't start out like that.
No,
though.
she just wore white because she liked it. And then
we make up these traditions to go with the narrative that we want them to fit.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just think that that's, so funny. And then obviously the tradition of the father walking the bride down the aisle. Yes, giving away. And I'm just kind of like, well, we're not property. I mean, at some point we were, but we're not anymore.
Yeah.
And so I like the tradition because it's like, well, your parents and things like that. But I also hate the tradition because I'm not property.
Yeah, I get that. I see both sides of that. And like, that's like something before Brian and I got engaged, we talked about, I was like, are you going to ask my dad for permission? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm glad. Like, because, my dad, I wouldn't say my dad's like old school or that Brian's old school, but just like in a traditional nature, it just like kind of a fun thing that like they like each other. And for him to like have this conversation, like, I'm, going to ask and all of that. I think it's just really sweet in my mind.
Which is so funny because I did the exact opposite.
I know. Because you're like, I don't care. I don't need your permission.
Yes. Ty immediately, when we first even like started talking about getting engaged, he very much listened to me because I was like, do not ask my dad.
Yeah, because he'll tell everybody.
Yes. I was like, A, I am not property, and B, my dad is a gossip. Yep. And I love my dad. Dad, if you're listening, sorry, you know this. You would just be excited and tell everyone.
Not a bad thing to be.
No.
But it would ruin the surprise for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, don't tell him because then everybody's going to know and then someone's going to tell me. So don't do it.
And that's not fun.
That's not fun.
Yeah.
But also, I'm not property.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if he gives permission.
And for sure. Like, if my dad had said no, I'd be like, all right.
Yeah.
Cool,
then Brian has to sing that song that's like, why you gotta be so rude?
That's such a good song. Ugh. throwback. Yeah, I would have just been like, okay. And then we would have done it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to marry that girl, marry her anyway.
Exactly.
Just like they say in the song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It was more of just like a kind of a cute little like, oh,
yeah,
to me than anything. But
it's more of like a tradition to be like, hey, heads up.
Right.
This is coming.
Yeah. Like not totally asking for your permission, but like kind of like, just so you know, I'm going to ask. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. There's so many weird like wedding traditions and funny things. So many things I didn't know. Like Catholic weddings. I've been in a couple of Catholic weddings, and
Catholic weddings are wild.
They are wild. First of all, they're so long. If you do, because like some people do like a full mass, right?
Yes.
But like they do, I think it's kind of a sweet tradition. Like the mothers of the bride and the groom, like they put roses on like Mary's like statues, like to like bless their like children's union, which I think is kind of like cute and sweet. But you know, like over the years, people have come up with more things like doing the unity candle or the sand or like whatever it is.
We did unity glass.
Ooh, how fun.
Yes. So we poured like 2 colors of glass into like a vase. And then what we did was then we sent it off. And then they did a glass blowing like sculpture.
Hell yeah, that's so cool.
I know. And then I still have the extra glass so I can go back later and I'm going to eventually have them do ornaments.
Ooh.
That are blown in glass, but they're really expensive. So I waited. But because I was like, well, sand. I mean, well, and it's all going to like mix and be ugly at some point, and I'm going to dump it and break it. And a candle, then I just have like a used candle. Right. Like, what are we going to do with that?
Yeah. Something that's a little more like long lasting.
Yes.
As like a symbol of your union.
So when I found like the glass, I was like, I love this.
Yeah.
But people do like
so fun
sandwiches and shots.
I know. All kinds of things.
And, you know, all sorts of stuff.
It's fun that people have made it their own in that sense for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it definitely like, I mean, at the same time, it is such an industry now that it was not, 40 years ago.
Yes, it is
so
a money
making
scheme.
It is an industry. People, I think a lot of people our age don't understand that like this is not normal to have these like ginormous weddings and all of the
social media now. Everybody is like, I have to
competition.
Yes, I have to be as big and beautiful as everybody else's weddings, and it's like, no, you don't.
No, you don't. You should do what you want. If that's what you want, do that.
Yes, but if it's not, then don't.
Yeah, do what's gonna make you happy.
Yeah, Ty and I planned a huge wedding.
Yeah,
and then 2 months out, it was canceled because of COVID. And so I ended up getting our money back, and we eloped in Paris, and
it turned out to be the best thing.
Yes, and now I'm like, elope, do it. I mean, I love a wedding. I love a big wedding. I love a small wedding. I don't really care. But stress-wise, I'm like, elope. Right. It was fantastic. And all the people who are like, do this for your wedding. It's so rude that you won't do this for your wedding. I want this at your wedding. And I'm like, well, it's not fucking about you. You're lucky you're invited. God.
Fortunately, so far, now it's only been a week, but so far people have been really like, do what you want to do, and very like encouraging, which I really appreciate, because it's been a long time coming. And it's also difficult. Like, I've been in so many weddings. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to have stood by all of those people on their day. But it's, a lot of time has passed, like several years. So like, who I'm closest with has changed a lot over the years. Yes. And so, it's like those people are still really special and important to me, but I'm not sure if some of them are the ones that I necessarily like want to ask to stand beside me, or like had like the big part of my relationship with Brian or whatever. But yeah, it's been good so far.
Good.
So hopefully.
I'm glad. I hope it stays that way.
I hope so too. I won't hold my breath, but
I will say throwing a wedding really shows you like who in your life is really there for you,
right,
and who is not.
Yeah. Which is important to figure out anyway, especially at this age.
Yes.
Like things are, it's kind of starting to like crest that hill of just like, all right, now who am I going to be friends with long term?
Exactly.
So
it's wild. You think, everybody who's there at your wedding is going to be there forever.
Be in your life forever. Yeah.
And then you realize that they're not, and people, and it's
okay.
not. Yeah,
it's not malicious.
No,
right.
It's just people have different priorities and things happen.
Also outgrow each other.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And sometimes people just like get busy,
normal.
you know,
Right.
or move and, you know,
That's
all of those
all
things.
normal part of life.
But also sometimes it's people you think are there for you are not there for you.
Yeah.
And that's fine too.
That is, yeah.
You learn.
Yeah,
It's
you
fine.
should know.
Yes.
It's better that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else to say about marriage?
I don't think so.
Okay. I don't think I do either. That was a fun episode.
That was.
That was a really good conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a little ranty in the middle.
Yeah.
My bad. I stand by every word I said.
100%.
Well, thanks for joining us on this episode. Friendly reminder that we are on Patreon now. So if you could hop on patreon.com/anawfulworldpodcast, check us out over there. There's like lots of cool, fun stuff that you can kind of like be a part of the podcast with us.
Yeah.
But until then, we hope your day is simply awful.